He's angry about mortgages. It's Angry Mortgage. He's swearing. He's cursing loud. He's old. He's opinionated. And he's been doing this so damn long. This program is about mortgages, and this is mortgage advice, but the advice may not apply to your situation. Contact licensed mortgage professionals for specific recommendations before you make decisions about mortgages. You may not agree with Ron, but if you don't, he thinks you're wrong. Oh, and did we say there is a lot of swearing?
Angry Mortgage is on the air, another special edition with Chris Turcotte of Centum. What's the whole name?
The whole mouthful there?
The whole mouthful there.
Centum Financial Group.
Centum Financial Group. Now, just so for people who are not mortgage brokers, although I had a depressing, should I call it depressing? I don't know how to look at it. I had this experience the other day where I was amongst a group of mortgage brokers, and so many of them said how much they, and also mortgage company workers, like people who work for mortgage lenders, okay? And so many of them told me how much we enjoy the podcast, and over and over. And the more that it happened, the more I thought, sweet fucking Jesus, this is ridiculous. The only people who are listening I can't sell mortgages to. The fuck? Like by the end of the day, I was at the point where I was saying, quit fucking listening. Get your friends to listen, okay? So I have a chance at doing some business out of this, for the love of Christ. I mean, like, it was. I don't know. It was an experience, let me tell you.
I can attest to this. We were just at that conference, and everyone would stop you saying, "I listen to your podcast."
Like, by the way, here's something that I'm glad Chris brought that up, because I was telling everybody that I met with at the conference, holy fuck, the mortgage brokers industry is unemployed. Okay, there were so many fucking mortgage brokers at this conference because it was free. You know, like, it's the favorite price for unemployed mortgage brokers, right? Like, that's the right price point. So, I can see the poor fuckers. It's like it's Monday, there's nothing to do. Tuesday, there's nothing to do. Thank Christ I can go to this conference and pretend I'm in the mortgage business, okay? Because holy shit, that place was full. Overflow parking.
Think of all the swag you can sell on Facebook Marketplace after. There you go. So there's an entrepreneurial aspect to it.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, oh my God. But it was an experience. Like, oh, geez, I've never seen that full of joint in my life, okay?
Over 1,000 people, they were saying.
Really?
Yep. Over 1,000 people.
I mean, you can tell there's no mortgages getting done. Okay. Like, there was a time when you didn't have time to go to the bathroom. I mean, that's obviously way different now. Anyway, Chris from Centum, and Chris is somebody who's been in the business for a very long time. He's not old, but he started young. You did start young, right? 17
in the cash cage at Royal Bank, because I wasn't old enough to work up front.
Jesus Christ.
It's all I've really ever known.
Finance lifer.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep.
Like, just out of the womb almost. Holy mackerel. 17?
Yep.
At Royal Bank. Wow. And for a young guy, Chris has been doing this for a long time, very successfully. And he's got an interesting story about how he got here, because Chris is from a small town, right? You're from a small town?
Brandon, Manitoba.
So tell the story of how you got into being the boss of Centum from coast to coast.
Yeah, wasn't that an interesting story? How far back do we go? It's I'll give you the
don't go back to your childhood, man. Okay?
Right.
Like, we got a time limit on the show. All right. Like,
As I was, I could start from the womb, but
don't start in the womb.
No. So Brandon, Manitoba. So the Brandon, Manitoba story is kind of funny. I moved there for a girl, which we ended up splitting up before we moved. So that was fun. So I bring that up because
how old were you when you did that?
Oh, geez, when was that? That was 2009. 2009. I was originally a Winnipeg boy.
Oh,
yeah, it's originally from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
It's actually, I was born overseas in Nice, France. And then my father, my mother was one of the original people to part of the study of you shouldn't fly during the 3rd trimester.
Really?
Because they went to go visit my grandmother in Nice, and on descent, my mom's water broke. So I was born.
So you were effectively Canadian, but you...
Yeah, 100%. But spent, I was a preemie by 3 months, and I ended up spending the first 6 months in Nice. And then we moved over to Canada, back over to Canada once it was safe for me to do so. So ended up in Selkirk, Manitoba. Don't even look it up. It's not worth it.
I know where Selkirk is.
Wow.
I lived in the prairies for like years.
That's right. Yeah. I keep forgetting that. So yes, from Selkirk, and then like every other Selkirkian, maybe that's a word. The minute you can drive, you live in Winnipeg. The second you can.
Hell yes.
Yeah. So then Winnipeg 2009 was Brandon, moved there for a girl, like I said, and we split up and met a gal, and it was actually we were in the process of getting a mortgage. Mm-hmm. And we were walking through a house. I actually just told this story at the conference. We were walking through a condo, and RBC guy my whole life. I had left the bank at that point. I did a very small stint at Maple Leaf Foods. Mm-hmm. I was a sales executive there, and but I still had staff pricing on a mortgage.
Cool.
I'm walking through this condo, and the realtor literally would not be sitting here today, wouldn't have anything I had it not been for a realtor.
Yep.
Believe it or not, how many brokers can say that?
Probably not many.
Or I owe everything to a real estate agent. But anyways, we're walking through the condo, and the guy says, he really supported his guy, and he said, hey, have you been pre-approved? Royal Bank staff pricing. No thanks. I don't need anything from you. And he said, hey, I'll just call him and put him on speaker and just like shout out your rate. You have pre-approved, and if it's lower, if he's got something lower, wouldn't you agree that it's worth talking to him? I said, sure, yeah, why not? So he shouted it out, and I said, you're clearly quoting me a variable rate. I'm talking fixed rates. And the guy goes, no, that is my fixed rate. And I was like, holy shit, that's a low rate.
So you're saying RBC was fucking you?
No. What I found out, and I told this joke. I told this joke at the conference. What I found out years later, because jumping ahead, I ended up working for the guy that had done the mortgage.
Sure.
I had no idea at the time. The realtor had texted him in advance and let him know what he was up against. So he's like, hey, AB or RBC staff pricing. So I don't know where you need to be. So he knew in advance, and then you'll appreciate this method, and you have fond memories of it, I'm sure. He was using first line points to offer me a super ridiculously competitive rate. So I had no idea.
You're aware I'm very familiar with the concept of buying business, right?
Right. Well, I know it's.
We are the lowest rates in fucking 3 provinces of Canada. So yeah, we're very familiar with low rates.
I may have heard a thing or two there.
Might have heard that.
I may have heard that very positively from the vast majority of the broker community,
which every broker fucking hates.
Right.
They hate it. They absolutely hate it. Like they hate the whole idea of Butler. It falls into 2 categories. They either say when they hear about, oh yeah, I'm talking to Butler, they will launch into if you're a banker, okay, or a lot of mortgage brokers, they will launch into a long story about how he's tricking you. Butler is tricking you. The whole Butler operation is a trick with terrible product that will fuck you, that will bite you, that will harm you, that has unmanageable penalties, that has this, that has that, and it's all just a fake, okay? Which is a lie. It's a complete lie, okay? I would say 98% of the mortgages we do today are just completely normal products. Same penalty or better than any bank. Same prepayment. They're absolutely normal. So they'll say that, and certainly everybody at a bank will say that, and a lot of brokers. And some brokers will just say, "Oh, you're dealing with Butler? I give up."
Yeah. And honestly, I hear that one a lot.
I give up.
Yeah. And that one,
Okay, but let's go back to Brandon, Manitoba. You're in Brandon, Manitoba.
Yep.
And you find out the broker at a better rate. What happened next?
So we go through the process. I'm midway through the application. I show up to his office to do the application because he had me there. I was like, okay, well, I did say that it was worth talking to him if the rate was lower.
He got you.
Yeah, 100%. So I go see him, and I sit down with him, and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to save you some time. Here's my GDS. Here's my TDS. Here's my only outstanding liabilities. And he just kind of put his hand up, and he goes, how the hell do you know all this? And I explained to him, I was like, oh, well, lending's actually all I've ever done my entire life. Yeah. So, we hit it off right away, and got some commonality there. It was a great process, completely opened my eyes to mortgage brokering, because don't forget, I worked for the Blue and Yellow, and back then especially, they taught us that you only went to a mortgage broker if you couldn't get approved at the bank.
No, they still teach that.
Okay, well, I didn't know they still did, and I was also trying to play nice. The cameras
No. The RBC, but I am always telling people how much I appreciate RBC as a competitor. Like I always,
100%.
I'll say that. Yeah. They are a superb competitor. They will do amazing things for their clients. They will rarely be the lowest rate, but sometimes they are. But they will bend rules and find a way to get their longtime clients into a mortgage that fits. A great competitor. Like anybody who doesn't think that RBC is one of the great banks of the world is wrong. They simply are.
100%. Big shareholder.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, the most important thing you can do in any business, in my opinion, is be rational about how it works. And they are a great competitor. But go ahead. So you're not a mortgage broker yet.
Not a mortgage broker yet. Halfway through the application is when Maple Leaf goes through a very public listeria crisis.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I'm one of their executives at the time. And they start looking.
Did you actually pour the bacteria into the machines?
No, I just never washed my hands.
There's that.
Right, how do you think I got into the studio so quickly, right?
Exactly. You just flew right in here, right out of the washroom, never heard a single drop of water.
In every aspect of my life, I am all about efficiency.
There you go.
Just ask my wife. Anyways, I digress. So we're halfway through the mortgage process. That whole thing hits at the company that I'm now working for. I was a sales executive for Canada Bread, which was at the time was owned by Maple Leaf. Crisis hits and they start downsizing like crazy.
Laying people off.
And they're going into the pockets of where it's not going to hurt the bank book, right? I'm in the prairies. So halfway through the mortgage process, my entire office gets packaged out.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. So I call the mortgage broker. Of course, I know how this works. So I call him. I say, look, first of all, you completely changed my opinion on mortgage brokers. So I want to thank you for that. I now understand you're on commission. I feel awful. But when the bank calls to verify my employment, it's going to bounce.
Sure.
I just got laid off. He gets really quiet and he says, well, they signed off on the employment condition like 3 days ago.
Okay.
So
he's a fraud artist.
So, yeah, right? Yeah, 100%. We're not going to pull there. And there's a reason I never use his name, by the way. 100%. And it's so funny. I was telling my wife.
All right. For the non-mortgage brokers people out there, if you get a disclosure from a client who's, even though when they've been signed off, if you get a major disclosure from a client, oh, yes, I was just arrested, or, yeah, I just lost my job, you really, really, really are supposed to tell the lender, okay?
100%.
Particularly that arrested thing. They will be pissed off at you if they find out one of their borrowers closed, the transaction closed, and he's in jail now. They will not be happy.
Yeah, I have an arrested story, but one story at a time.
Oh, yeah, one story at a time.
I'm totally kidding. Yeah. So at the time, he's like, so if you want the place, it's yours. I'm a banker as well. Wasn't a mortgage broker at the time, and I'm just thinking, I just subletted my apartment, newly married, and I'm now homeless. So yeah, you know what? I'm gonna close on the condo.
So you aided and abetted the fraud.
100%. 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Which, by the way, is a great start in the mortgage.
Right? That's the irony of the entire thing. Oh, shit. I was like, I subletted the place. Okay. That being said, when I'm leaving out, I also had a year's severance. I'd been paid a year's severance.
You were not a risk.
I knew no matter what, I wasn't going to default on the loan.
Now you're going to become a mortgage broker.
Well, so he asked the question. So I told him, I was like, hey, I had said, first of all, I want to pay you for your time and everything else. He's like, oh, actually, it looks like we're clear to close. And he's like, hey.
CIBC's going to pay me.
Yeah, well, yeah. And he's like, hey, wait a minute. He's like, you came in here. You were the only person. I've been doing this my whole life, and you knew your GDS, TDS. You clearly know your way around a mortgage. You seem like a personable guy. You just told me you have a year's severance in the account, and you don't have a job. You ever thought about being a mortgage broker?
Join me.
Yeah, right? And he was like, join me. And I was like, well, what the hell? Why not? I was new to Brandon. It was a farming community. It still is a farming community. I'm a Winnipeg.
Oh, yes, folks. As much as we love everyone in Manitoba, it's a farming community.
100%. It's a farming community, especially Brandon. You know, their WHL team is called the Wheat Kings, and there's a piece of wheat. Yeah, there's a piece of wheat on it. Yeah. And I didn't really fit in. And so there I was, you know, like I'm newly married. I just got a mortgage. I don't have a job, and I'm contemplating doing a fully commissioned job, a job I've never done in a city that I don't really seem to fit into. But I said, yeah. And the rest is history. And that's how I got the start.
All right. So then you to cut the chase, you were a very successful mortgage broker, and he was a Centum franchise at the time.
No, so he was actually a mortgage center. I started at a mortgage center. It's funny because they love to tell that story to people, which like, hey, that's their gimme. That's fine. It's my history. It is what it is. Started at the mortgage center. I kid you not. I've posted it before on social media. You look out the mortgage center window into the Centum. It was directly across the street. Okay. And they were owned by Century 21. As back then in the early days, most Centums were, because we're owned, a lot of people don't realize, you know, our parent company owns C21 and Centum and RPM and Uniglobe, and we can get into that later. So they were actually always trying to poach me, because it didn't take very long. Within the first 6 months, I was the top producing agent in the city, period. And then within about probably...
We're going to call it a town, Chris.
Town.
Okay, it's a town.
Good point.
Okay. We love you, Brandon, but you're a town.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a booming metropolis of like 65,000 people now.
Town. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry, guys. I tried to go city. Okay, fine. Town. Within a year, I was out producing not only the broker that I started for, but the entire office. And it was very clear. I'm like, okay, I've got something here, right? The Centum had tried to recruit me multiple times, and I had said no. You know, at the brokerage I was at the mortgage center, it was 4 guys. And at 3 o'clock, each of us took turns every day of the week handing out, a beer at 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Burping, farting, everything when clients are not. It was a frat house. It was a frat house doing mortgages.
Okay.
And across the street, I love them dearly. The one is the closest thing I have to a living mother other than my mother-in-law. She's still very close to me. It was her and another gal, and they were both 60 plus, and that was it.
This is who was running the Centum office.
Who was running the Centum office.
Okay, yeah.
So they're trying to bring me over, but I'm like, kind of like...
But it was a retirement plan for them, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm kind of like, well, this doesn't fit, and it's like beer o'clock every day, right? Yeah. So finally, the owner of the Centum, who was the owner of the Century 21, called me, and I took the call, a man that I highly respect and consider a mentor, a gentleman by the name of Ray Brownlee, and I answered the phone, and I literally cut him off, and I said, Ray, I'm not going to join you. And he goes, I know. I promised I wasn't going to pitch you anymore. I think we should go for lunch. I have an opportunity that, I think could change your life. I was like, well, you can't avoid a statement like that. Like, really? So we went for lunch, and he explained. He's like, look, the gals are both 60 plus, and we don't have another broker in this building. So we've been one of the top mortgage brokerages. We have all this data. We have all this client base. And if they leave tomorrow, what do us C21 partners have? So like, we'd like to sell you the brokerage.
So you bought the brokerage.
So I bought the brokerage. Fast rewind 3 weeks prior to that, interestingly enough, and this is where transparency, I think, in this industry is super important. 3 weeks prior to that, I loved my broker, but he was one of those guys that coincidentally we got paid every 2 weeks, and that Friday he was always up at the lake, right? You chasing this guy for money was a nightmare. And so he came in one day. We hadn't been paid for like 3 weeks. So it was a joke of like, when he comes in the door, tackle him. If you see him, tackle him because we need paid. So I tackled him because at the time, top producing agent. It's not a lot of money. I'm sure it's what you do on the bi-daily basis, but back then it was a lot of money for me. He owed me like $17K.
That's real fucking money.
I'm in Brandon, and my mortgage payment was like $680.
$17K in Brandon. You buy 2 houses back then.
Well, so my mortgage payment was $683. I remember that because oftentimes in the first couple of months as a mortgage broker, I had to make sure I had enough to make said mortgage payment in those early days. We see him. We tackle him. I said, look, I really need to get paid. And in a hurry, he prints off his reconciliation. And he's like, go get that off the printer. I'm like, okay. So I go get it off the printer. Now I come from the banking life. You don't look at anything on the printer. Take it off the printer. I look down and I see my name a whole bunch of times. And just full disclosure, it draws my name. I see my name.
Wait a second. You just finished saying you're not allowed to look what's coming on the printer.
I know.
But you forced yourself to do the intrusive thing.
I'm being honest. Yeah. I grabbed it and on what I'm just explaining. What caught my eye was my name. So I looked down and turn it over. But I saw enough to see my name and then the word VB. And when you're a brand new mortgage broker, and I'm sure everyone can attest to this.
VB, by the way. Yeah, B. Okay.
Yeah, VB. I'm looking down at this thing, and for any new mortgage broker, I see this VB, and on those commissions when you're brand new, you know every penny you're going to make after split because you're banking on it.
Yeah.
So I have all the commissions in my head of what I should be seeing on there. And there's this whole separate column of VB and a whole bunch of more money. So I put it down on the table and I say, hey, by the way, just curious, like, what does VB mean? And the senior broker that had been there for 30 years in the business, I asked him, I said, hey, by the way, what does VB mean? And the guy in his office across the hallway goes, ha! And the guy goes, white as a ghost. And I'm like, what? And he's like, we'll talk about this on Monday. He
was stealing your money. Yeah.
Writes me my check and goes away. So I go across the hallway. There's a gentleman by the name of Brian Keown. I love him dearly. He coincidentally now works for our Centum back in Brandon. And he looks at me and he goes, we were all wondering when you were going to find out what VB is, because I can only imagine what that's worth. So I tell that context because here we are 3 weeks later. I'm working back my whole year on how much money he didn't even. So I was getting 60-40 of just the finder's fee. That's all I was getting.
So he was fucking you out of money.
Oh, so I'm doing the math here, and I'm like, holy moly. So when I sit down with the C21 to buy the Centum.
So let's face it, after the guy had fucked you over intensely, like a really, over the couch, no lube moment, okay? And you decided, I like, fuck this guy. I am going with these guys at Centum because I'm pissed at this guy.
Well, so sad part is, believe it or not, I actually cried in his driveway when I broke up with him and told him I was going to do my own thing. So it's not that I was in a hurry to leave. It was actually the economics. So when they hit me with the price, I did the math and I was like, well, wait a minute. Making 100% of my commission, I'm going to pay this thing off in like 4 months.
So, yeah, you have to do the deals.
This is a no-brainer, right? So I do the breakup and...
all right, fast forward. You're in Centum.
Yeah.
A couple of years go by. You're shooting the lights out, right?
Doing great.
How do you evolve into, tell a story about how you evolve into running Centum? How did that happen?
Yeah, so that was really interesting.
You guys are like, there's 2,000 agents, folks. Like, it's the real deal. Like, it's a real company, and the people who own it, Charleswood's, right?
Charwood, yeah.
Charwood. They are rich as fuck. Okay, they are like...
They do okay.
They're rich as fuck. I mean, they are just rich, so rich. Well, the father's really old, right?
Yes, yeah.
How old is he?
Is in early 80s.
Early 80s.
Yep.
That doesn't matter. Early 80s is fine, even though I'm going to be dead soon. But
still
fine.
The first one to answer an email if I email the whole executive team.
But these guys are very successful, great business people, obviously made shit tons of money, rich as fuck. And how did you end up working for them and running their whole thing over there on the mortgage side?
Yeah, so it's, honestly, I think right era, right time. Mm-hmm. And that's no illusion of grandeur. You just had lunch with me. There's nothing special here. I'm just a talking head. So
we all are, really.
Yeah. I think right era, right time.
Okay.
Very much like, Bill Gates attributes his success to.
How did you get from Brandon to Vancouver?
Yes, yeah. So I had always stood out in the Centum network.
Top guy.
Yeah, well, I was always in the top 10, always for units because it's Brandon. So I'm doing units like crazy. Mortgage volume, I'm not in the top 100.
But it's a ton of units.
100%, yeah. So I'm pushing out units like crazy. And from a small farming town.
It's a town, yeah.
I'm doing more units than anyone in Winnipeg. I'm pulling units from other provinces. It's like I'm pulling leads everywhere. My whole background was social media. I had a YouTube account before anyone had a YouTube account. I had a Facebook business page before anyone else had a Facebook business page. I was doing podcasts and videos on mortgage products and posting them on community websites and everything back in like 2011.
That was a stone age.
We still can't convince mortgage brokers to do it today, right?
True.
So they would always fly me out for the national conferences and I would speak at the conferences and then I would help others. So there was already that influence. I was already seen a certain way. I'll save the brutal history, but
tell us some of the brutal history. Oh, no, I think legally you can't.
I can't tell you all of the history.
You got some NDA stuff you can't tell all.
Got a little bit of NDA stuff. Yeah. There's urban legends out there, but the brand leader at Centum was no longer with them. Let's just say that part, and they actually left us brand leaderless for months. I think 6.
There's no boss.
6+ months. No boss. No leadership. No direction.
Yeah.
Bless her heart, Caroline Rapson. If anyone's familiar with Caroline Rapson, she's been the face of Centum for 22 years. She was the only one doing anything, just trying to keep the lights on. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity had come. So there was a circumstance that I had briefly left the organization.
All under NDA. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's say that. There was a brief circumstance where I had left the organization, and it was actually through the exit interview with the CFO of the Charlotte Pacific Group that called. And they've been doing that. By this time, they've been doing it for 38 years. And she called and she said, "Hey, my calculation, you owe us a little bit of money." And I said, "Absolutely. Where can I send the check?" And she paused. And in 38 years, anyone that ever left mid-contract had never easily, quickly volunteered to pay. And she was taken aback by that. And she was like, that's like all of it? You don't want to settle? You don't want to, and I'm like, no, I made you a deal. This is what I owe you. At the time I needed 3 weeks. I needed some sort of magical tax evaded check to land into my bank account.
There you go.
Yeah, and
I don't think you violated an NDA there. You're good.
And so needed that to arrive, and then it wasn't even going to be a bonus for me. I made a deal with someone, so I was going to pay to them, and that left an impression on. I didn't find any of this out till after the fact. She, of course, hung up, and she's she is literally the right hand of our founder, Mr. Gary Charlwood, and she shared that with him. And it was actually him that said, "That's our new president. That's a quality that we appreciate here. You have to go find this guy." And they explained to him, like, there's a variety of reasons why that can never happen. And he said, "Well, I've been doing this for 38 years. And if you actually, this is not a joke, if you go look at the IFA, International Franchise Association, that you can Google it, you can find the picture. Gary Charlwood's name is right next to Ray Kroc and Charles Hilton."
I met Ray Kroc.
Yeah, this is one of the OGs.
You know that? I met Ray Kroc.
I did not know.
Like said hello to Ray Kroc.
That's amazing.
I was a punk kid. Ray's been dead for a long time. Ray Kroc founded McDonald's, by the way, folks. This movie, Michael Keaton did a good job in that movie. And he, though he's much taller than Ray Kroc was a tiny little man, like a really, really small guy. But I actually met Ray Kroc. I was working I was working the lunch shift at a McDonald's when I was going to high school. And he comes over to me, and there was a guy beside me flipping burgers, and he says, oh, excuse me. He said hello. He was nice, said hello. And he said to the guy next to me who was flipping the burgers, he says, "You're putting a bit too many onions on that burger." By the way, these are fucking dehydrated onions.
Yep. Okay,
they are dehydrated. Okay, like they are onion dust that you pour water into
a bucket, and then they grew into
onions. He said, they cost at the time, they probably cost about a 1,000th of a penny each. Okay, like they were worthless. And yet Mr. Kroc was there, worth $3 billion, saying, "Yeah, you got to put less onion dust on these burgers. Just got to be very careful."
I love that.
I met Ray Kroc. Yeah,
that is amazing.
Well, he's dead now. It's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
our R.I.P.
Your guy is really famous in the franchise world.
100%, yeah. So like a lot of the franchise acts, he was a part of. He was a part of forming them.
Yeah.
And he just made the statement. He was like, "Listen, like if it's the right person, we're gonna find a way." And he knew enough about the situation. I didn't realize this till long after. The way that it had all gone down, he already saw a wide open door. The way it was.
Well, look, if you're a master franchise guy, you understand all the law around franchises. You can read the contract. You can figure out a way. You got lawyers. You can make shit happen. Simple as that.
Yeah, and it did happen very quickly.
But there's still an NDA. We won't go hard on it.
Yeah.
So then you are running Centum.
Long story short, it all worked out.
When did you start running Centum? When did it happen?
December 12th, 2016.
So it's not been that long. It's 7 years.
7 years.
Okay, so a lot has happened in 7 years.
A lot.
Now I'll just tell this about Chris and Centum, because Chris has changed Centum completely. Centum was known as a place where mortgage brokers went to hone their craft at fraud. Okay, that's what Centum was all about prior to Chris showing up. I know all the guys who were the leaders before are going to say, "Oh, you are wrong, you fat fuck." But the truth is, it was pretty not good. Okay, it was not good at Centum. Okay, and tell us the story how you turned that around. What'd you do?
Yeah, 100% accurate. And we come by it honestly. It's part of our story now. And how it came to be, I had no idea. Because let's remember, cool.
The town of Brandon, Manitoba. What the fuck would you know about what everybody else is doing in Brandon, Manitoba?
I had no idea. I didn't even know that these brands had like presidents. I thought if you probably looked far enough, they were all owned by banks in some way, shape, or form. Like I had no idea. So I did what I did in the mortgage broker business. I just started making relationships, right? And I was like, okay, I need to start meeting these lenders. And I've had some very key mentors in the industry that had been the head of banks. And they all started repeating the same thing. They were like, do you know the task you have at hand? You're like, look, we seem to like you. You're saying all the right things. Do you understand the task you have at hand? I was like, no. And then they all started telling me.
All right, so for the audience out there who's not in the mortgage business, I mean, there's mortgage fraud, there's mortgage document fraud, there's there's evil doings, there's doing off the books deals where you're trying not to even pay a cut to the franchise. I mean, there's a million wild things.
And it's everywhere.
But mostly there's good guys too. There's a ton of good
100%.
people. Okay. But there's mortgage document fraud is soliciting, creating, or presenting to lenders fake income to get and I won't, we've done shows on this stuff before, so I'm not going to do a whole show on this, but
You have a how-to video, I think I saw on your YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, we got a guy who's just doing Adobe work in the back there. So because it used to be people who actually did, it's called cut and paste. People used to use whiteout and chop documents up and then take photocopies of them. But now it's much more sophisticated. It's all done digitally. But fake income documents, because that's how you got a bank to approve a mortgage, right? Simple as that. And Centum was kind of a hotbed of that and a bunch of other stuff. So.
Yeah, it really was. So the key people, they knew who there are. Actually, a lot of them know you, so I'm sure they're probably gonna take a gander at this. But they were so critical because they were honest with me, right? They gave me an honest shot through transparency. Sure. So call it Manitoba country roots or whatever, but I made a decision. I was like, I either don't want to, I have to either change this or I need to go back home because I refuse to just sit here and be this figurehead of something I don't believe in.
You're still here, so you fired a shit ton of people.
So first six months, I'm sure the board was wondering what the hell did we do because it was over 600 agents and over 40 offices. We terminated contracts and we cleaned house. We cleaned house. I did not make a lot of friends, but ironically, actually, to your point, you said something very key. There's a lot of good brokers, and ironically, as I started cutting offices, I was getting very appreciative emails and phone calls from our constituents that are of quality. They were saying, "Thank you, finally." And that was the big turning point because then I had garnered the trust of our network internally, but more importantly, suddenly the narrative with the lenders was changing. And I started to hear it. So when they would talk to brokers or they were at conferences or they'd speak to other lenders, the narrative started to change where they were like, no, actually, Centum doesn't tolerate that stuff. And it took years. Here we are, year 7. But year 3 or 4 is when what I would call is a different echelon of brokerage would actually pick up the phone and have the phone call with us because they were starting to hear from their lenders. Of course, a big concern, yourself. There's others like Vince Gaetano, close friend of mine. He was starting to hear from lenders what we were doing because they would talk about fraud or they would talk about networks in general. And they'd make a statement of, hey, actually, there are some networks out there making a difference. So that changed our narrative.
Well, the reality is if you go from running being put in charge of, because you weren't running it at the time, but be put in charge of a very shitty operation and to convert it to as honest an operation as it's possible to run at a given point in time. Everybody notices. You have to notice. The lenders sure as shit notice. Okay. And kudos to you. I mean, I know it's never easy to explain to a leadership group that you got to fire all these producers. I mean, I guess and then you got the owners of the franchises screaming and then you got a little bit of litigation issues with shutting franchises down, and it's fucking horrible. Okay, I mean it's a tough road to go, but in the end, by the way, folks, this is really important to understand both in the mortgage business because this is really a mortgage broker insider show, but this particular show, different than the regular angry mortgage where I'm just yelling about shit, is that on the inside of the mortgage business, there's lots of ways to go, and every single mortgage brokerage owner has to make a decision how they want to run their shop. Every single franchise operator, like you guys are, has to make a decision on how they want to run their business, want to run that whole group of companies who are their franchisees, right? Yeah. Who are their franchisees, who they are, how they're going to operate, they have to do the right thing or not, okay? Because the reality is some people don't care, okay? To this day, some people don't care. In both in leadership and in people who run brokerage offices, they just say, well, I want to make money. And the way to make money, if this guy's a great producer, or this gal's a great producer and the documents are all fake, as long as we don't get caught or I have a story to tell when they get caught and try to skate on it, yeah, maybe I'll do it. I mean, it's a sad truth, but there's no point in trying to pretend it doesn't exist.
Oh, it's not.
That's stupid. That's stupid to pretend it doesn't exist.
And it happens in every single house, every network. You're naive to think if it doesn't. Even the best with the highest reputation, it's still always going to happen.
Because people go rogue. People can be fined and then go rogue. I mean, I was talking about this the other day, and I'm interested in your insight in it. We see a big reduction in the mortgage business. They're just writing. It was actually in Bloomberg today. They were talking about how far the mortgage business has dropped in the United States and in Canada. How depressed.
Amount of brokers, you mean?
No, in terms of total mortgages. Like they don't care about brokers. Like Bloomberg doesn't care about brokers. They care about total mortgages that financial institutions are doing. And in the United States and Canada, it's falling off a cliff. Okay, it's just radically down from what it was for reasons that we've talked about on the show a million times and reasons that most of the audience are familiar with. But it's not looking good. It's looking like it's actually going to get worse, okay, before it ever gets better. All right, so in your position as a brand leader, you see this, and the trouble is that if you're making half as much money as a individual, as a mortgage broker, mortgage agent, mortgage specialist, whatever the hell the name of it is, if you're in the mortgage business, which is a pure commission business for the majority of people, some salaries, but mostly commission, and you're making half or 60% less than you were, or 65% less than you were, there's a temptation at a certain point to try to get a deal done, right? And not do the right thing. Yeah. What's your view on that?
Yeah, desperate times, desperate measures, right? And you nailed it. How many brokers right now are doing twice the work because they're counseling on top of it, and then they're putting them into a 1 year or 2 year at 60 or 70 basis points, right? So you're absolutely right. I think it's going to happen. I think it's naive to think that, we talked a lot about integrity over lunch, right? Like I'm probably, especially after lunch, maybe I'm too far to where I'm in the idealistic sunshine and rainbows section. But I'm very much in the field of it's going to happen. All that matters to me from my perspective is what do I do when I find out about it? That's
all a leader can do. That's all the boss can do.
That's all I can do, right? And what disappoints me is when you see somebody that you've always had a gold star next to, and they fall outside, right?
Well, desperate times, like you
said. It's sad, but you know what? Like the only thing I worry about is we don't compromise, right? And it's heartbreaking when it happens. Obviously, somebody you consider a friend, somebody you're close to, or something. If something were to happen, but that doesn't change the integrity map. Where unfortunately, if somebody does something wrong, my job is to protect the integrity of the brand, and we didn't do what we did for 3 years.
You were letting people go like crazy.
So, yeah, we didn't do all that. You know, it's the classic saying about a reputation, right? It takes 20 years to build, and it takes 20 seconds to ruin.
Sometimes, I'll be honest with you. In some cases in business, that doesn't seem to apply because, I mean, there's some dipshit bastards selling crypto and other. I'm not going to say NFTs. You notice I didn't say NFTs.
I was like, are we going there?
You notice I didn't say NFTs. Okay.
Well, this could get interesting.
But there are some evildoers who loaded people up with garbage and walked, and they're just trying to get back into it again. Okay. So yes, I mean, don't get me wrong. In the lending world, it's true because it's a closed shop. There's only so many lenders. Okay. And if you gain a reputation as being a crook, you're going to have a hell of a hard time. But to your point, we were just discussing desperate times. And I've always wondered, what is that catalyst that people, is it just the desperation for money because they know that their lifestyle's so impaired, they know their family's counting on them, they're not bringing it in, and that they just think they're not hurting anybody by doing it, even though they didn't do it for 10 years, but they're not really hurting anybody. And then, of course, there's the stories you hear of all the guys who have been doing it for 10 years and more or less getting away with it because some of them have. You fired them, somebody else hired them, right? Like you've seen it.
Instantly.
You've seen it.
Instantly.
Yeah, you've seen it.
And the sad part is they don't even call us to ask why we let them go so suddenly. They don't care. It's all about the money.
So, but what is it about the people who will never do it? And by the way, I don't want to give them some kind of, halo effect. I mean, yeah, there's some people who
just for doing the right thing and not breaking the law,
just for not being a crook. Okay,
right.
I don't want to do that, but there is always that just thing inside people when there's just lines. There's just lines they cross or they don't cross, and sometimes they cross it when they've gotten into a difficult spot. Not excusing it at all, because people always ask me, "Well, Ron, you've always really seemed to, be vocal about this," and some of it is quite selfish. I'll be honest with you. It's very selfish. Because if you're in the group who never don't create documents. Like, you don't do that. That's not what you do. You're really, really fucking pissed off that the people who are doing it seem to be getting away with it constantly, and it's an easy way to make money. So again, it's not like I keep pushing for CRA linkage, because that basically ends it. If we have a direct link to CRA,
it's coming.
We've been saying that for so fucking long. Come on, but hopefully someday we'll have it. Direct CRA linkage. You give us a document. The bank checks it with CRA, says yes, no, stop, go. Yeah, no, that number's wrong. We don't know where they got that number from. It's not the number we have at the head office at CRA. We catch it immediately. So that would be a great day if that happens. But here's the thing. It just pisses you off that you know people are getting away with it every goddamn day. Every goddamn day they're putting out bad paper, sometimes getting caught. Then they just go out and hire their cousin, get their cousin licensed, and the cousin starts doing it. I mean, God, we could talk about this forever. But at the end of the day, it makes you mad that they're making money that you're not. And you could have, because you could have done it as a B deal. Like, you could have gone to one of the, I'm not supposed to say B anymore.
Really?
Everybody's supposed to, you got to say alternative.
Okay.
But you could go to an alternative lender.
Is that like woke? Because like B implies that you're not A and that hurts feelings?
No, it's not, like, I don't mind it sometimes. Like, if you are the president of a lender that's got a bank license, why the fuck do you want to be known as B? Like, you're not A. Right, like, why am I B? For fuck's sakes, why am I B? Yeah. Like, I got a bank license, for Christ's sakes. Don't call me B. Okay, I know, I get it. Okay, fine. We'll call you an alternative lender, or specialized lender, whatever the hell we want to call you. But that they could still do that mortgage. They don't need the perfect income that a bank does. There's the really strict guidelines that every bank does, that the big 5, big 6 banks do, that pisses you off. It pisses you off that
100%.
You could have gone that. So it's a bit selfish. I'll be honest. It's a bit selfish. You get mad at it because you don't do it, but other people are profiting from it. Okay.
Well, it's no different when we kick. Like, look, we've house cleaned, right?
Yeah,
we house cleaned.
Tons of people. Yeah,
and within days, people on the corporate team would be sending me links that they were at every other brand.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like, so it's not, and it wasn't about the losing money for me. It was, wait a minute. I did the right thing to kick them out, but that's the extent of what I can do. And it's very disheartening to just know that no one else cares. It's just all about making a couple of royalty points off them. So that's really disheartening. But I want to back up a quick second, because it's so much more than we maybe realize. Like I reminded of an instance that you and I had maybe 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. There's a gentleman that you had called me about. I can't remember his name. Not sure you want to get any more legal letters.
I don't fucking remember.
Yeah,
I'm old. I'm 66. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. Okay.
But this whole little rant is about the fact of, like, no one cares. And that's why it keeps happening. Mm-hmm. No one cares, and there's really no consequences. So Ron had called me one day, and I don't know how it came about, but you had seen that somebody was, like, trying to apply to get into our network.
Yep.
And you gave me a call, which, by the way, for anyone listening to this, I always want to take those calls. So Ron calls me and says, hey, FYI, this person just got out of prison for mortgage fraud. Like, they got out, like, and it was quick. They got out, like, last week. Like, they probably still had the cardboard box that all their stuff was in. Yeah. And they were already back. They immediately got out for mortgage fraud, filed their very first thing they did was file their application with FSRA, and it got approved. And now they were trying to find a brokerage to, like, so if even the regulator is stamping those, and I remember when I called them, because you had tipped me, so I called them and they said, oh, he used his middle name as, so we didn't notice.
Yeah, no, the regulator just wouldn't give it a free pass.
So he just got stamped. So number one, it's like.
So he frauded the regulator too.
100%. 100%. Sad part is, though, go look. They never canceled his license, even after I told them. And even after they disclosed to me that his middle name, like, still licensed. Anyways, I digress. So on the one side, that's a little frustrating. And then to commit the crime, what's the worst thing that happens? The lender cuts you off? Oftentimes that's the first step. So, okay, the lender cuts you off. Well, just submit it to another lender, because there's really not a truly effective universal system where we can put somebody on the naughty list.
It's pretty effective at banks, but not
in our channel specifically, right? Yeah. So your first consequence is, well, the regulator might just give you a hall pass anyways. Then the worst thing that happens to you, even if you're caught dead committing fraud, is that lender just says, well, you can't submit here anymore. And then the worst case scenario, if you lose your license, after you've made millions of dollars, they give you what, a $50,000 fine, which you can easily afford.
Well, we're right in the middle of it now. We got a guy who's, gone, he's appealing his suspension, and he's facing like probably it's going to cost him $100,000. And the good news is today, I'll be honest with you, the regulator in Ontario has gotten better. Okay. You can appeal, they'll suspend your license, you can appeal, but you can't do business. Your license is suspended. You can't do business. I mean, I hope, and in BC, the regulator's a little tougher. The regulator, not perfect. No regulator's perfect.
No.
Okay.
How can they be?
And the reality is that in our democratic system, when you're going to take somebody's livelihood away from them, you've got to have a high bar. You got to have a really high bar to take their livelihood away from them. So but it's getting better. I think it's getting better. Okay.
The moral story, it's white collar crime with very, very inconsequential consequences.
Well, at the end of the day, there's no cop will pursue it.
No.
There's no cop in Canada. No. If you show somebody here, this guy gave us fake income documents. First thing the cop says is, okay, where did the money change hands? How did you lose money? Oh, no, we didn't lose any money. So why are you talking to me?
Yeah, why are you calling me?
Why are you calling me? So that's ultimately what the issue is. Okay, but let's move on to something that I'm interested in, is the future, because we are in this incredibly volatile moment in time in the mortgage business, way down. Mortgage business origination is way down in Canada. Everywhere you look, banks, mortgage brokerage, you name it, way down. Customers are suffering through high interest rates. Borrowers are suffering. There's a sort of a general malaise in the industry, and the borrower is pissed off. They've got nothing but bad news every day. There's a possibility we'll see, a genuine possibility, we will see house prices decline in the next 6 months. Not everywhere. Like, I think Brandon might be okay, but we love you guys, really, we do. We love Brandon. But I think there's been some, where you and I are, you're in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I'm in Toronto, and I think we're going to see some price reduction. And in some other parts of the regions that you're in, like in the Fraser, you're in the Fraser Valley, right? Really?
Yeah, I'm in Langley.
Yeah, you're in the Fraser Valley, and
we've got easy 6-figure haircut on our house in the last 12 months.
There you go.
Easy.
So then maybe more to come, possibly. So it's a very volatile, difficult moment in time for the mortgage business, for borrowers, real estate in general. And you work within a framework of both mortgage brokerage, real estate, and property management. So you're in the heart of this thing. What do you see coming up in the next couple of years? What's the future as you see it?
Yeah, well, I think pain for the short term. I think it's always interesting when you see people with the optimistic, hey, this means there's going to be a rate reduction next. Yeah, there's going to be another increase. Anyone that thinks there isn't another increase,
good chance of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's to steal a term from a mutual friend. Put your helmet on, kids. It's about to get a little bumpy.
Right? Get bumpy.
It's going to get bumpy, right? So I think. Yeah, and you know what? There's people far smarter than me to weigh in on that. Benjamin Tao, look at Benjamin Tao. Remember his comments a year ago, right? Like I would pick a 1-year term.
That one didn't work out.
Yeah, right. So and hey, Benjamin, I
like Benny. Benny's a good guy,
and I still get my advice from him. But the point is like even the most. I mean this is a compliment. Even the most brilliant minds in our space.
Oh yeah,
aren't batting very high on these predictions, right?
My God, is that true?
Yeah, 100%.
And the really, really fucked up part is that you'll talk to people all the time, whether it's the consumer, whether it's a mortgage broker, whether it's a banker, and so many of them will tell you, I really saw it coming. I really predicted this, and then you say to yourself, "Fuck no, you did not. That is bullshit. That's absolute fucking bullshit. You didn't predict shit about this. You're totally wrong." But we all have our biases. We have cognitive biases that we think something that didn't really happen. So,
yeah, what's that saying? Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then.
Wow. So what happens next?
Yeah, well, I don't worry a lot about what the market is going to do, and I know that sounds silly, and you
can't control it.
I often get criticism for that, but it's exactly that. I can't control the market, so I never at things at Centum and. I guess is this a breaking news? You heard it here first, kind of thing. So it's there we go. We got the breaking news for the Butler podcast. Recently, well, by the time this airs, within the Chartwell Pacific Group organization, obviously going to stay at the head of Centum, but also moving into the head of integration between our 3 brands, Century 21, Real Property Management, and Mortgages.
Well, that's a big job.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And it's all about integration. So asking where the future is, I don't work with great people to come up with products for the market ahead. I just, you build for what you want going forward. So where we're putting a lot of emphasis, and you can learn lessons from hard markets though. And the one thing this hard market has taught us is, wait a minute, we have synergies here. We have synergies between property management, real estate, and mortgages, where if we could get them cross-selling and leverage those synergies, what does it mean? Now, of course, at the fundamental, at the highest level, you'd be like, oh, just, more money for you guys. Yeah, but more importantly, that's a lot easier for a mortgage agent to navigate this market if there's potentially some real estate revenue, if there's potentially some property management.
Okay, so let's break that down. So the concept here is that Century 21, which is a big real estate brand in Canada, Centum, which is an active mortgage brokerage brand in Canada, and you run a property management division as well, you're going to work to explore linkages and integration, and really trying to, is it fair to say, to try to pivot off each other? Like, you're going to try to say that when the people come to the realtor, they're going to be immediately introduced to the mortgage side, and vice versa. Is that the idea?
100%. Yeah. How do we work together? We're all in the same family. So if you're going on to a Century 21 listing, how do you make sure there's a mortgage opportunity there? Like the C21, even in this market, the C21 traffic is insane. It's still over 500,000 unique visitors a month. Mm-hmm. And then the most unique thing about that is that website traffic is really valuable to you and I, because they're not there shopping for shoes.
They're there for real estate.
They're there for real estate. So you have, like, that target demographic is pure. So how do we get in front of them and ask them questions like, do you want to find out if you can afford this home, right? And try to add value to the real estate experience. And integrate and seize those opportunities. For example, on the RPM side, how do we partner with our property management brokerages? So for those unfamiliar, Real Property Management, RPM, is Canada's largest residential franchise organization. We have a portfolio of property managers coast to coast. So imagine a world where that property manager has this portfolio, and obviously you've got to get consent and everything else. And we have something called the IBP program, so the Investors Benefit Program.
Folks, for everybody listening, we're just going to make the assumption that all the privacy of the client information is going to be maintained perfectly intact.
That's why this is. And thank you, because oftentimes our franchisees, we talk about the flag on the hill, and they're like, well, come on.
No, this is privacy serious. Very serious.
The technology took a quarter of the time the legal and regulatory side has taken, right? So yes, thank you for that, and I appreciate you pointing that out. So imagine a world where consent is given, where clients enroll in this IBP program, Investors Benefit Program, where what we will do is when we onboard a property investor, we're getting their mortgage statement, their renewal date, and we're able to, on a monthly basis, monitor the value of their home and identify mortgage opportunities.
So leverage the brands internally to create opportunities for all the brands within, so that the money stays at home, so to speak. So it stays within the organization. Now, couple quick questions on that. Does it run the risk, if you're a mortgage broker, if you're a Centum mortgage agent or broker, does it run the risk that your realtors that you currently get referrals from will say, fuck you, you motherfucker, you're so tied to Century 21 now, I am cutting you off, you bastard, okay? Is that a possibility?
So originally, I could see how people would think that. Everything that we've done was to protect that. So what we tell our C21 agents, for example, because we're not naive, like okay, we're going to potentially cross-sell mortgages on their websites. First of all, there's no Centum logo, because we want to respect that. Mm-hmm. We're only going on the clients that are swimming by online. So what I'll tell a Century 21 realtor, which same thing for Centum, for example, is, hey, if you're a C21 realtor and you have a great referral relationship with your RBC guy, he takes you on a trip, he takes you golfing, everything else, and he's your guy, great. All the traffic swimming by was never going to go to him anyways. So how we position...
Yeah, I mean, if you missed it, everybody missed it, yeah.
And that's how we're positioning it. We're like, hey, you've got an RBC referral relationship, mazel tov. Mm-hmm. We're here to capture everything that's swimming by your boat. So same at Centum, right? We're not trying to, we're doing it in such a way that we're not invasive. We want to respect the relationships. What we want to do is we want to respect the relationships. We just want to elevate them everywhere those relationships are not. That's the challenge. And where I'm super optimistic, obviously it's my job to be optimistic, but where I'm optimistic is uniquely me heading up integration. I have been in those seats. I'm conscious of those relationships.
You've spent the time.
I've lived those relationships, right? So everything we're building is to complement that. But ultimately, our goal is, how does a relationship with the Chartwell Pacific Group, whether it be Centum or Century 21 or RPM, how do we get it to the point to where one transaction in your own respective brand could be potentially 1, 2, 3 additional opportunities?
So Chris and I debated this a little bit. I mean, because I am a guy who thinks that the market stays pretty diffuse. Like that typically, I'll just be honest with you, people have been talking about it, and even in the US, working hard at it, trying to create this linkage between mortgage and real estate. And like the biggest operator down there, Rocket is the biggest mortgage company in the history of the world, okay, in the United States. I like you guys in Canada. Hello, shout out to Rocket in Canada. I like you guys. You're good guys, but I don't think you're really lighting the fucking world on fire here in Canada at all. Okay, at all. But maybe someday, and I'm sure that's what you keep telling the guys in Detroit. Someday, give us time. But you're good. By the way, they're good guys. Like, I'm never going to detract from those guys. I know those guys. Beckman's a good guy. Lots of good people down there. They're in Windsor. But I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. Canada's a different place. But in the States, Rocket, very interested in the real estate revenue and mortgage revenue linkage, hasn't achieved that much, hasn't really taken off at all. And they are the kings of that mortgage business down there. I mean, that's not to say that they do more business than, that they're shooting banks down. They're not, but they still are the #1 mortgage origination company in the world to this day. Okay. And they're having a hell of a hard time getting that linkage to work. So, I mean, I compliment you. Great. Good job. Like, your
great
boss,
job.
Your boss Pat. No fucking hope. Okay. But like, I'm glad your bosses believe in you. That's always good. I tell you what, if you're going to work at a big company, it's good to have your bosses like you. That's a good, and promote you and believe in you. That's a great thing. Okay. But this linkage is tough. It's tough. It is really fucking tough. And I've not seen anybody pull it off. Not saying you can't, but... And why is it tough? I'll tell you my personal belief of why it's tough. Because people discover a realtor through many, many different ways, many, many different techniques. And I'll give this shout out to all the realtors in this country, all the successful top realtors in this country. You've done well. Like, you have done a magnificent job of keeping digital out of your life.
100%.
Like mortgage brokerage, we got all kinds of digital competition. We have seen our commissions reduced. We've seen I'm one of the main perpetrators of that. Like, I personally am involved in seeing everybody. I am personally involved in seeing everybody make less commission. Like, that's the nature of my business. But at the end of the day, the realtors have defended the high ground of their incomes, and they've defended the uniqueness of their proposition, and they have defended the setup by which somebody buying a house pays nothing. It's only the seller pays, which is a fucking miracle of business, if you think about it. Like, if you could say to somebody, I'm going to drive you around, I'm going to assist you in every way, I'm going to negotiate on your behalf, I'm going to spend endless nights driving, weekends, I'm going to be every question I'm going to ask, I'm going to respond instantly, I'm going to do this absolutely unmitigated genius job of servicing you in the best way, and I'm not going to charge a penny. Somebody else is going to pay for it. Folks, that is magic. That is fucking magic. Okay? Like, that is an unbeatable thing. Okay? Now, of course, as every cold-hearted business person will tell you, but wait, Ron, of course you really paid. You really paid because the seller needed to accommodate that commission. The seller had to offer a big commission to the buyer's agent. The person who's selling the house has to make that work, has to make sure that they offer enough commission to the agent who's bringing the buyers so that they're going to sell their house, so that the agents are going to be incented, They're going to want to do it. They're going to want to show the house. They're going to want to do deals. And really, at the end of the day, when you become a homeowner, you're now in the fucking soup. Like, you're going to have to pay a big commission if you ever want to sell your house. Someday you will sell your house. You mean, you drop dead, somebody's going to sell it, okay? Somebody's going to sell your house. So without knowing it, you are in this thing. You're in this vice grip of commission, okay? And just because the buyer doesn't pay doesn't mean they really are paying. They're going to pay some fucking day. They're paying with a higher house price, okay? That if there were no commissions involved, the seller could offer it at a lower cost. And we all understand that.
100%.
But it's still fucking magic, okay?
100%.
It is the best. It's untouchable. Like, it's a miracle. Now, again, a lot of realtors don't make a fortune. We're always attracted to the realtors who make a killing, and they obviously work very hard. They've done very well. They've done a million smart things, but that is a magical formula, right? It's a magical formula.
Would you rather drive around or look through T1s, though?
Yeah, well,
like we do it too.
You and I made our decisions a long time ago, but
we made our bets.
But here's the reality of life: is like the number one realtor in a given city, town, community. The number one realtor makes a fuckload more money than the number one mortgage broker.
100%.
Like as an average income, that is absolutely factual. Okay, not mad about it. I'm happy having weekends off. I don't mind. Okay, I don't take any calls from customers at 10 o'clock at night. Nothing. I'm all good. But it's a magical thing. It really
100%.
is. The whole setup is magical, and to crack that is hard. It's hard.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I said, I'm going to keep the idealistic rose-colored glasses on. Here's what I'll say. I think Canada and the U.S. two vastly different markets.
Yep.
100%. We are uniquely positioned to come at this like not even Rocket was. In that you
got the database.
In that we own the three brands that we're asking to play together. Where if you look historically, this is where I'm hedging my bets. Historically, it's Rocket asking to partner.
Yeah, you're not inventing anything new. You have all the machinery in place,
and we're not relying on hey, we're going to play together because this contract says so. No, we're genuinely in the soup with each other.
Oh yeah,
behind the scenes at corporate office.
You're in bed. Hope you use protection, but I mean seriously, you're between the sheets with all these guys.
And we think that's our superpower in this. And then finally, because we had a great talk about, well, hold on, the realtor holds all the power. If the realtor says go see RBC, it's going to RBC.
Yeah.
Here's what's different about this, especially when it comes to the mortgage and the real estate transaction. We've injected ourselves into the real estate transaction, and the realtor is unaware yet. We're working with them. We're pre-qualifying them. We're building the relationship. We're locking that in. And then when I call the realtor, if it were me, of course, we're going to have staff do this. The first time the realtor hears it, it's really, here's a fully qualified paycheck you knew nothing about. And I think that's
the theoretical loyalty factor.
That's and hey, is anyone going to say, yeah, I don't give a shit, I'm still going to give it to my RBC guy? 100%. But that's where we're really confident to the C21 network. Imagine picking up the phone and you had no idea that somebody was looking at one of your listings. Listen, and now there's something there.
I'm going to watch this with great interest. Because I am, whatever is wrong with me, and there's so much, what's right with me is I'm a student of this game, okay? And I'm always fascinated by the systems people come up with. Chris, many thanks. You've been a great guest. I'd like to say Chris flew all the way out here just to see me, okay? But that's probably not the case at all.
Although I would.
Nah, you wouldn't.
After that meal, I would.
But thank you. Thanks for being here. And thanks for talking about a high-level view of running a mortgage brokerage network right across Canada. Thank you.
Appreciate the time, Ron.
If you like the pod, well, don't just sit there. Go to YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all the other ones and like the pod. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep being angry at mortgages and swearing about mortgages. Angry Mortgage could use your support.